Okay, in this video, I'm going to make a big, bold claim that we can 10x your prices without changing anything about your business other than one little thing. I know that sounds crazy because what we're talking about is going from $1,000 a day to 10 grand a day, or 2 grand a day to 20 grand a day, or a typical client spending 2.5 grand to spending 25 grand. So what would you change in order to 10x your prices and deliver pretty much the same thing that you deliver now? Let's get into it. I'm going to explore this idea with you. I think it's going to blow you away. I think it's going to surprise you that 90% of your value comes down to this one thing. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about being in front of the right client. 90% of your value comes down to being in front of the right client. I want to share with you two examples. One of my clients is a guy called Ray, and he has a business that does occupational health and safety. And in some instances, he might work in an office environment, and in other instances, he might work in a manufacturing environment. And I asked him, how much do you charge per day? And his answer was 2 grand a day. And a typical client spends about 10 days doing occupational health and safety work. Now, I asked him, what is it that you do in an office environment? He said, not much really. There's not a lot of danger happening in a typical office. I said, what's the most dangerous environment that you ever work in? And he actually identified a very niche type of manufacturing that if you're in this particular type of manufacturing, there's all sorts of injuries. Most of the people who work in this type of manufacturing have English as a second language, so there's a language barrier. There's all sorts of cutting instruments and there's all sorts of large machinery. It's a very difficult, dangerous environment. I said, how good are you at solving the problem in that particular type of environment? And he said, actually, it's all the same processes that I do everywhere. We go through the same sort of formulations, but we just do it in a particular, very focused way. And I can massively reduce health and safety issues in that environment. I said, why don't you run a campaign to be known as one of the best in the world for that particular environment? Have you got case studies and stories that would point to that? And he said, yes. So he focused his effort on being the best in the world for that particular type of manufacturing. And he really just reached out and told people and made them some videos and content and assessments on the fact that he was helping with that particular environment. Now, in that environment, they don't care what goes on in offices or other types of environments. They want to bring down the cost of injuries and claims, and they also want to get that out of their workplace as well. So he was able to massively increase his day rate from 2 grand to 20 grand just simply by being known as the top person for that type of manufacturing. I'll give you another example. There's a woman called Esther Perel. She's one of the highest paid couples therapists in the world. She charges about $250,000 per couple that she works with. And what she does is very similar to couples therapy that any couples therapist could do. She uses a lot of the same tools and ideas and same frameworks, but she's extremely focused on ultra high net worth couples. So people who are worth more than $30 million, they go to Esther Perel as the #1 in the world. And she has run a campaign to tell people that she does couples therapy for ultra high net worth individuals. Now, here's an interesting thing. If we take Esther Perel, she gets paid $250,000 from the right type of customer, the ultra high net worth individual. But if I was to put her in front of someone who's single and say, how much would you pay for Esther Perel's time? They'd probably say 0. I'm not interested in couples therapy at all. If I was to put Esther Perel in front of a normal couple who earn a normal amount of money, they might say that they would pay 2, 3, 4 grand for couples therapy across the course of a year. That might even feel like a big commitment for them. But when she's in front of the ultra high net worth couple, $250,000 feels cheap because they have so much to lose if their marriage breaks down and so much to gain if they can get their marriage back on track. So Esther Perel's value is dependent upon who's looking. It's dependent upon the type of customer that she's in front of. Now, in marketing, we call this segmentation, and I want to share with you the 3 main segments that you need to understand so that you can move up a segment and potentially 10x your prices by offering the exact same thing as you do right now. So, segment number 1 is the top 1% of the market, the 1% of the industry. Now, the top 1% of your market has about 15% of the total available budget. So 1% have got about 15% to spend. We call that the top end of the market, or we call that the luxury end of the market. The next section down is what we call the 9%, and the 9% have got a collective 45% of the total available budget. So between the top 1 and 9, the top 10% of your audience, the top 10% of your market, they have 60% of the budget to spend. Now, if we drop down here to the 90%, they have a total of 40% of the total budget. So 90% of people share in 40% of the budget. 9% of people have 45% of the budget, and 1% of people have 15% of the budget. So we have these three segments. Now, I want to give these segments a name. The 90%, we're going to call that the mass market. The mass market, they are the market that shops on price first. So the first thing that they're interested is in price. So when you're talking to someone who's mass market, they typically think, this is my budget, this is what I can afford to spend, and then they're looking to get as much as possible for their budget. So if they've got $1,000 to spend, they're going to say, what is all the things that I can get for that $1,000? But they're very much price first. The 9%, we call this an affluent niche market. Or if you're in the USA, you'd call it an affluent niche market. So affluent niche or affluent niche. Now these people, they shop on passion. So they are really interested in things like community, they're interested in thought leadership, they're interested in stories. They want to connect with the person who is most known, liked and trusted and recommended and referred to. They love connecting with people based upon the passion. The final market up the top here, we call this market the luxury market, right? So this is the top end, the high end market, the luxury market, and these people shop based on something called pedigree. So pedigree is the ability to know that you're dealing with the number one. This is the most awarded, the most recognized, the most number one. This is the one who all the other luxury buyers choose. Now, in this category, you really have to be known as the number one. And of course, that's highly competitive because the top 1%, they want to buy from the number one. So if you think about like luggage, all of the 1%, they've got Rimowa luggage, right? Because that's known as the number one luxury brand for luggage. So the top 1%, they always buy from the number one. They're looking for whoever is recommended as the number one, and that's who they're going to buy from. If you fall out of that position, unfortunately, they won't buy from you anymore. And they love things like heritage and they love exclusivity and prestige, but we call all of that pedigree. Now, the best market that you should be looking for is this one here, the affluent niche. The affluent niche, they shop on passion and story. They don't necessarily need you to be number one. They do need you to be passionate about what you do. They need you to be focused on getting great results at what you do. So we call this the affluent niche, and this is where you want to be. Now, the 1% have got 15% of the budget. The 9% have got 45% of the budget. So this is where a lot of the money is as well, right? So these are people who've got money to spend and they're really interested in passion. Now, if we were to break down the numbers here, if we were to say how much could each of these spend, if you kind of break it down based upon these budgets, if the luxury end is willing to spend $15,000 on something, that means the average person in the affluent niche is willing to spend $5,000 on something. And down here at the 90%, the numbers come out at $445 for the same thing, right? So if we were to survey these people based on these numbers, it would come out at, I'm willing to spend $15,000 at the luxury end, I'm willing to spend $5,000 at the affluent niche end, and I'm willing to spend $445 at the mass market end. So when I say that you can times your prices by 10, you can see here that the difference is actually about tenfold. The mass market are willing to spend $445 on something, that's their budget, and the affluent niche 10 times that at $5,000. So we see this all the time. We see lots of examples where people go to a life coach and they want to spend $445, but other people go to a life coach, they're happy to spend $5,000. We see it all the time with things like watches. We get plenty of people who want to get a watch for under $500, but we get lots of people who are happy to spend $5,000 on a watch. So we see all across different categories, there is this mass market end, and then 10 times the price is the affluent niche market as well. So you don't have to be luxury. Obviously, if you can do it, fantastic. If you're the type of person who's winning top awards and you're recognized as the number one in your industry, by all means, go all the way up to the luxury market. But for most of you, the place that you want to be is the affluent niche. The cool thing here is that just by doing exactly what you do right now, but doing it for the right person, you could as much as 10x your current prices. So of course, one of the easiest ways to identify who is in each of these categories is using a scorecard. If you've got an assessment and people take the assessment, you can put qualifying questions into your assessment that identify, is someone a luxury buyer? Are they shopping because they're part of an affluent niche? Or are they shopping on price as they're part of the mass market? You can ask questions like, which best describes your current situation? which best describes the product or service that you would most prefer to buy. You can ask people directly, which best describes your current budget for getting a result? Or you can ask them, which problem are you trying to solve? Or do you read any books? Do you follow any communities? There's different questions you can ask that help you to identify which type of buyer is in this category. In fact, a story springs to mind. One of our clients helped parents with a particular outcome with their kids. And one of the questions that they put in their scorecard is, do you have a nanny, part-time, full-time, or no nanny? And they knew that their particular client, their buyer, had a full-time nanny. So just simply by using that particular question, they were able to identify which type of client they should get back to, and they were able to segment their market, and they were able to keep their prices at that much higher rate. Okay, so that's plenty to think about. I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, give it a subscribe, leave me a comment below. All of that helps the channel and reminds you that more content is available. And also, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to scoreapp.com, where in addition to the free software and the free templates, you can also access some more of the video courses. As you're ready to scale up and win more clients, as this is all working for you, we've got pricing plans that are absolutely perfect for every level of business. I look forward to seeing you soon. All the best.